Welcome, 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 everybody. Thank you guys for joining. Welcome to the Victory Live podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Marie. Thank you guys for joining. This is a very, very special day. I want to welcome everyone to the podcast. Thank you guys for joining. We have lots of new people on our podcast this evening. So thank you, TikTok folks, for joining and hopping on in there. Thank you guys for joining. Guys, it's such a great time here. I'm so excited to know that we've got already 5 sessions behind us, guys. 5 whole sessions behind us. And we've talked about so many amazing things. So guys, this is really a milestone moment for me here, for us to be here together and to be talking about all the great things that we have to talk about. So again, welcome, 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 everyone. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you guys for joining. Welcome to the Victory Life podcast. So guys, I couldn't be more excited. I couldn't be more excited to have you guys with me joining today on this journey together. You know, Victory Life podcast, in case you guys didn't know, Victory Life is all about us learning and growing and getting to know more things about God as we're going through the ups and downs of life. So it's all about Victory Life. So we're here to help you achieve victory in your life, no matter where you are in your life. We're looking to help you achieve that. So excited to have you guys here. Now, generally speaking, our podcast is a great podcast for families and teens, you know, children, etc. But today I would say a caution with having the little bitty kids on the podcast today. Today I think we're going to be great for married people, single people. I think we're going to be great for men, women, teens. But the little ones, maybe not so much, because guys, we're going to be talking about deception today. And so we're going to probably get into a little bit of relationship stuff and things like that. We're going to touch a little bit on sexual immorality. And with that, I think we need to be just a little bit cautious. Okay, so I'll let you guys use your own discretion. If it feels right to have your children on, then let's have them on. But, you know, wanted to make sure I gave you guys that heads up because it's our very first podcast on TikTok. For all my folks on Facebook, for all my folks on YouTube, thank you guys for being the listeners who are always there no matter what. You guys have been going strong from day one. This is our first day on TikTok, so just, you know, it's a lot of excitement today, guys, just a lot of excitement. So I couldn't be happier. So again, I want to kind of go through all the podcasts we've done so far. This is our 6th episode, but you guys don't know. We have had many, many episodes in our back pocket so far. And in case you guys didn't know, we had our very first episode on the power of prayer, So we were able to sit down and discuss all the hindrances to prayer. We were able to talk about how we could help you accelerate your prayer and how to get more in that mode so that you can get, you know, more of your needs met and start, you know, reducing some of the opposition in your life and having a good way to battle and fight, you know, each and every difficulty that you're experiencing. So our Power of Prayer episode was amazing. We really talked about our spiritual authority. We were able to learn how we could step into that spiritual authority. We talked a lot about declarations. And so it was an amazing time that we had together. So super, super excited that we had that time together. Episode 2, just so you guys who haven't been on very long, I want you guys to go out to that YouTube, subscribe, and I want you guys to have access to this information. It's great information. But episode 2 was all about opposition versus unnecessary warfare. And that episode was really an episode that was going to help us to frame up, what do we do when we're having all these blockades in life? What do we do for that? And opposition versus unnecessary warfare helped us to walk through that. A lot of times when we're getting a blockade or something stopping us in life, and most often, you know, if we're inside of the will of God, then we want to be able to identify that because we're going to battle and fight and pray differently than when we're outside of the will of God. When we're outside of the will of God, that particular video really helps us to think through how we can be strengthened, how we can what we need to pray for in terms of favor and strength and endurance so that we can battle our way through. And so that was a great episode. That was episode 2. And then we moved on to episode 3. For those of you guys who have not been with us, episode 3 was all about dysfunctional grief. And so for those of you who, if you know someone who's having grief and they're not able to get back to, their day-to-day, if they're struggling with eating and sleeping and just really struggling in that area, then that's a really, really great video. I hope that you guys go ahead, subscribe to YouTube, look for that video and share that video with them. That video is going to really, really help them battle and fight and pray. It's going to help them understand the nature of death, where death came from, the story of Adam and Eve, and where death actually originated, so that we understand some of the promises that God has for us, that he predetermined for us. And so great, great episode. Check out that one. That one is episode 3 for dysfunctional grief. Then we got into episode 4, guys. Episode 4 was a heavy hitter. We went into sexual immorality. That particular episode, I would say, is great for men, women, children. Men, women, teens. I wouldn't say that's a great episode for the little ones, but great episode for men, women, teens, married people, single people. It really talks about what you do when there's sexual immorality, and it's kind of coming at your marriage, helps you understand what to do when you are, a single person navigating the day-to-day life and trying to get victory and being bombarded with those temptations. And so go check that out. I think that's probably a struggle for many, many, many of us. And so I wanted to make sure that we covered that as one of our special topics. And then Episode 5, that was last week, guys. It was only a week ago that we were together. I'm so excited to have you guys on. So episode 5 was spiritual battlefield and surrender. And it was really an episode that was all about trying to get us from a place where, we already know who our creator is. We already acknowledge, Jesus as our source, that he died on the cross for us, and we have forgiveness for our sins, eternal life, grace because of that. So we talked about acknowledging our God, right? Talked about acknowledging God as our starting point. It talked about acknowledging that we have needs, spiritual needs that need to be met. And it talked about what would be in between our acknowledgement of our creator and us getting our needs met. And what's in between that is the spiritual battlefield. And so it goes all the way into that. And at the very end, we get into surrender. So guys, that was a real sweet spot for us last week to get into that and really understand how we can get across that bridge to get our needs met, to have those conversations with God, to really be able to get to a place where we're ready to be saved. All of those things are part of that, figuring out, how do I get into the place where, he's my provider? How do I get into the place where, my battlefield is going to be worn down some? So really gets into that, guys. Super, super excited. I hope you guys are getting a lot from that. And so, of course, today we have a brand new episode, and really wanted to get into deception, because I'm going to be honest with you guys. There are so many of us, so many of us who have struggled in the area of being deceived at some point. So many of us, we've struggled with that. We've struggled with discernment. We've struggled all the ways in between. And so we need to get into this topic, because we need to get out of that victim mentality and get into a mentality where we're winning and where we're achieving and where we're rising above the strategies of the enemy. And the Bible talks about that. The Bible talks about us not being ignorant of the devices of the enemy. And so this particular broadcast is particularly important, because this is the one that's going to help us to understand how we can win against the strategies of the enemy. And make no mistake about it, guys, deception comes from the enemy. It's an intentional process that comes from the enemy. And so let's just go into that. Let's go get into that really quick. Let's talk about what deception actually is, since we're on that topic. What is deception? In my opinion, deception is when we encounter, someone, something that's, someone that's living in their flesh, and they're intentionally falsifying things, intentionally lying to us. They are intentionally deceiving us. And most often, the fleshly benefit that they receive is through us. And so that is what it feels like when you are a victim of deception. So I wanted to cover that a little bit. And then let's talk a little bit about discernment, having poor discernment. What does that sound a little bit like? It's when you encounter someone who is unintentionally misleading you, because potentially they're still learning and growing. That happens all the time. Potentially, they're not made perfect yet, and they're still working on it. The Lord's still working on them. But what I see more often than not is when people are dealing with someone and they're encountering some warfare because they feel like, wow, maybe I've had, bad discernment. what happens most often is that those individuals are also living in their flesh. And when they are in that reality where they're living in their flesh, they often will want you to come into agreement with what they want to do that might be an ungodly act. And so, those are the kinds of things that I wanted to cover today, and those ungodly activities are usually achieved through you, through honesty, through you, and they're usually activities that require you to come into agreement. So that's a little bit about the difference between discernment and deception. I think we need to talk a little bit and make sure we understand that there is a little space between that. I think the biggest thing that's the difference is that one's an intentional act, absolutely intentional, planned, intentional, organized, orchestrated, led by the enemy, going through people as a vessel. And the intention is to separate you from God, bring you to sin, all those kinds of things. And so what I will say that what those two items have in common are actually, look, you're going to get wounded both sides, whether you're in a place where you have poor discernment and you failed in that area, or whether you've struggled and you've been a victim of deception. The wounds are the same size, guys. So that's why I bucket these things together, because the wounds that you get, they are the same size, in both instances. Very, very often people are actually living in their flesh. That happens a lot. And we'll talk about living in the flesh in just a second, for those who are new to that terminology. And then, on some level, in both cases, you're feeling misled, whether it was intentional or unintentional. You're misled and there was a person involved, right? And so that's part of what's happening when you are either deceived or when you've exercised poor discernment. And so wanted to cover a little bit about that, but I want to also talk a little bit about a little bit about when we talk about living in the flesh and, what does that mean? I want to cover a little bit of that for you guys. I want to cover a little bit of that. And I also want to cover a little bit about, why we're even having this conversation, because I think it's important for us to frame up, why we're having it. We're having the conversation, guys, because at some point, I believe we were all victims of either poor discernment or deception. We've either been a victim of one or the other, and likely we've been a victim of both. I'll be honest, likely we've been a victim of both. And so, it's one of those things, if we armor ourselves up, if we really, really focus and armor ourselves up, it's one of those things I firmly believe that we can beat, and we can be in that fight against the enemy, but we can always win. So I really want to make sure that we cover some of that, but we've all had some experience with it. If you haven't had experience with deception or poor discernment, then I'm going to need you to write a book. I'm going to need you to write a book about that, because I'm telling you, a lot of us could benefit from the fact that you've never had that experience, because you're doing something very, very right. I will just come right out there and tell you guys, this particular episode is definitely not about condemnation. It never is about condemnation. We all fall short. I'm totally a victim of deception in my lifetime. I'm absolutely a victim of poor discernment. That's me. I'll be the first one to tell you. And so I'm here talking about it because I don't want you to go through it. I want you to be stronger after this conversation. Again, I'm talking about this today because I know many of us, we are, in relationships, or we're in marriages, and we are, potentially in deception or having poor discernment, or we're on our way into a relationship or a marriage where you where it's going to be troubled because you've had bad discernment or been a victim of deception. And so we're talking about it because whether we want to or not, it's hitting us. The warfare is coming at us. And so we might as well talk about it because it's coming at us either way. And then I think it's really important for us to cover a little bit about the fact that, so many of the relationships that we know are in an umbrella of secrecy. And so for me, when I think about that, there's this little window of, keeping things private, which is acceptable. And then there's this place where it goes too far and it becomes a relationship that's in secrecy. And guys, the Lord is not looking at us like secrecy is a good thing. So that's one of the things that we're putting in this bucket as why we're having this conversation. Because guys, I don't want you guys to be ignorant of the enemy's devices. These are devices of the enemy. Secrecy, hiding things. The Bible says that, there's light and there's dark, and there shouldn't be where we're crossing over in between. We shouldn't be unequally yoked. We should not be that way. We should not be unequally yoked with an unbeliever if we are believers. And so if we're still working on ourselves and working on our spiritual journey and getting saved, then that's okay. We all have to come out and come through something. And so I wanted to cover a little bit of that, and of course I want to cover this deception and discernment piece, and I don't know if we'll get through all the information today, or if we will have to have a series, and that's to be determined. But I'm covering it today because I'm telling you guys, when we have a missed opportunity in this particular area, it typically puts us in a place where either with friends or with business that we are having wrong partnerships. It puts us in a place. It puts us in a troubled place. It puts us in a place where we're selecting and accepting the wrong jobs. It puts us in a place where we end up in the wrong cities. It puts us in a place where we're generally just, making bad decisions. And so the Bible talks about a lot of that. It puts us in a place where, if we are not careful, we'll be in a position where we've made a few mistakes that will take us a few years to recover, always recoverable, but these things set us back sometimes. And so, our goal of our conversation today is to really move past that. For people that have not experienced deception or just had poor discernment, then hopefully they'll be one step ahead at being able to recognize some of these things. For those of us who are in a progressive cycle of deception, or keep encountering people that we feel like are not good for us, where we feel like, do I have bad discernment? Or why is everyone that I'm with, why do they always behave 1, 2, 3 way? And why am I always getting deceived? Those are actually spiritual cycles. And more often than not, if we're not able to pick up on spiritually what's going on, then we could have a miss there, guys, and we could have some unnecessary warfare, guys. So want to talk about it because we're encountering it regardless. And guys, it's even been to the situation where, even for me, when I've been moving toward a place of deception and moving toward a place of poor discernment, even reaching out to people for advice, guys, it is so easy to reach out to the wrong person for advice and be given bad advice. That is so common. And so part of what we're going to be doing in this particular episode, or potentially series if it goes longer, is exploring that and helping you guys understand a lot more about, the fruits of the Spirit, helping us understand, giving you guys guidance, helping y'all get strategies against the enemy, giving you guys some of the answers that you need, biblically, that are going to help you guys recover from some of this. And so that's a lot of what I wanted to cover today and why I wanted to cover it. And guys, it is so, so, so important. So let's go ahead and move on into one of the things that I wanted to cover with you guys to help you understand some of the terminology. Because if you're brand new, if you're brand new to Christ, or if you're soon to be saved, or soon to be on your spiritual journey, I want to make sure that this information is at the right level for you as well. I know we've got a lot of folks who are believers on the line, but I'm so excited that we have unbelievers that are listening in and getting a lot of value from the podcast. And we welcome you. We welcome you. If you're an unbeliever, we absolutely welcome you to the podcast. And so Galatians 5:26, I know you guys, I'm going to reference just a couple of verses because, guys, I want you to have a couple of these verses because it's that important to me. I don't always go into the verses thing, but I want to give it to you because I think you guys need to know this. I need you to ingrain it inside of your mind so that when you see people that have these attributes, that you're aware. It's not about judging them. It's about awareness. And because the awareness is going to help us close the gap between deception, and it's going to help us to reduce the opportunity of having poor discernment. And so that's why I'm bringing this out. And again, guys, I don't want us going out judging people. That is not a Christ-like behavior. I want us to be aware so that if it's something where potentially these are attributes that we have ourselves, it gives you the opportunity to work on it. And so that's what I want to do. I want you to be able to be like, oh God, that's me. Let me work on that. Oh my goodness, that's the person that I have interest for. Let me ask God to change the desires of my heart. I want you guys to have that information because far too often, so many of us, when we encounter these things, people that are in their flesh, people that are not walking in the Spirit, so often what ends up happening is, even if we become aware, if we don't have that fight in us and we need to be strengthened from the Lord, if we don't have that fight in us, we're not strengthened, then even though we know that it's not good for us, we'll choose it anyway. We'll choose it anyway, and we'll end up in that space where we're wounded. And so, guys, I couldn't say that more. I'm super, super, super interested in making sure you guys have a couple of verses today, just to get you on your way. And so Galatians 5:26, it talks about the works of the flesh. It says the works of the flesh are evidence, sexual immorality. That's one of the works of the flesh. Impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, dissensions, divisions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and all things like this. So those are some of the works of the flesh. And so I want you guys to be self-evaluating too. This is not just about putting out things in other people. I literally sit here, and every time I get a verse and it's speaking to me, I literally sit down and I'm taking that in. I'm meditating on that verse. Of course, we don't meditate on anything except for the Holy Bible. That's not healthy. That's not a healthy attribute to do. It's very risky spiritually to just blank out your mind. It's very risky spiritually. So yeah, whenever we're meditating on the Word. And these are the kinds of things you want to meditate on. You want to meditate on, what does Galatians say about the works of the flesh? Do I feel that, I'm being troubled with impurity, sensuality, idolatry? Am I saying, something comes before God? Am I having trouble with addiction? Am I going through often, drinking to an excess? And guys, that's what the Bible says. That's in the Holy Bible. But I frame that up as being in the flesh is, when you have an automatic biological interest for something and you're not able to shut that off. That's how I flame being in the flesh. So if someone upsets you, you want to be able to take your emotion and your feeling. You want to be able to take that and have that under control despite what's happening in the outside world. So if somebody is, trying to say something to get you stirred up, to get you started, you're supposed to react with a Christ-like behavior, and the Bible teaches us how to react. But reacting with revenge and being vengeful, fighting fire with fire. The Bible talks about, we should bless those who curse us and things like that. So we want to be sure that in case we're coming upon someone who is angry, that we're not reacting with anger, because that's what the enemy wants us to do. The enemy wants to plant a seed, put it in front of you, give you a little something to take all in. And then when you respond and you respond in the flesh, that's bringing you into sin right there. You don't even have to choose the person. You could just be around someone who's not good for you spiritually. You could enter their atmosphere. We talked about that last week, how when we go inside of an ungodly atmosphere, sometimes we receive inbound warfare, not because we're doing something wrong, but just because we're in the atmosphere. So if someone's angry and violent and we're putting ourselves, our physical body and our spiritual body into that atmosphere, more often than not, we can receive back some warfare, and we could be, and that could be damaging. That could be a spiritual wound. That could be a physical wound in some cases. So guys, and that's what we want to stay away from. So if we're out here and we're dating and we're looking for someone and we're in a good place and we feel like we're in good shape, I want you guys to be very mindful of the works of the flesh. I want you to be able to identify the works of the flesh. So when you're going out and you're meeting and you're mingling and you're interacting with people, I want you to be able to identify it so that you can make a good decision for yourself, right? If you've already worked through all of your issues with being in the flesh and you finally kind of feel like, we're never 100% perfect, guys. We always have this, this give where we kind of slide back in the flesh. Like no one is in, walking in the Spirit 24 hours a day. Don't we wish? But we're not doing that. But we want to be able to have it under some reasonable amount of control. So we're not falling out, getting angry, not having fits of rage, not fighting on the street, those kinds of things that could really end us up in some trouble. We don't want to be operating from that. And so want to make sure you guys can recognize when when you or someone else is in the flesh. And the Bible says we should be really, looking at ourselves. We should really turn and look at ourselves and evaluate ourselves before we even evaluate someone else. So make sure that you're doing that as well. And so another thing I wanted to cover, just to make sure that you guys knew, is the fruit of the Spirit, okay? The fruit of the Spirit is in Galatians, chapter 5, 22 through 23, around that. It talks about the fruit of the Spirit being, fruit of the Spirit is love, it's joy, it's peace, it's patience, it's kindness, it's goodness, it's faithfulness, it's gentleness, it's self-control, guys. And so those are the fruits of the Spirit. And so when you're working on yourself and you're finding yourself falling into the fleshly side, you want to try to default back into walking in the fruit of the Spirit. And in order to do that, I find the best way to do that is through reading the Word. If you're physically able, from your doctor, with your doctor's permission, to do a little fasting, then a little fasting, nothing over the top, not for weight loss, but just a little fasting, combined with prayer. If you're physically able to do that, if you're not able to fast due to your doctor's recommendations, then that's fine. Go ahead and just pray, read your Bible, get in your word, right? And so you want to be doing that, because if you are able to fast, what that's doing is you're kind of just beating up your flesh. You're beating it up. You're getting yourself to a place where when you encounter a temptation, you're able to fight that. You're able to fight it because your natural response from being in a fasting place is that you got hungry, you wanted to eat, but you didn't eat. You see what I mean? So that's how we're beating up our flesh. That way, when we're moving into a place of, let's say you're being tempted for sexual immorality and you're thinking to go that route, as you encounter that and you get into that atmosphere, you're able to battle that differently, because your body and your mind and your spirit have already pulled it together that when I'm tempted, I can say no. I will say no. And I know what it feels like on my inside when I say no and I still have a desire. That's actually what that fasting is doing. So I encourage that to help you work through things in the flesh. It's literally one of the first things that I did when I got saved. And guys, I haven't always been a believer. I have not always been a believer. I want full transparency there. A lot of how I felt about things over time have evolved, because as I became a believer and as I became grounded with the Word, things became more clear to me. I was able to see the error in my ways. I was able to see how the enemy constantly deceived me and had me in cycles. And I was able to break those cycles. And so I'm here to tell you about it, not just because it's good information. I'm here to tell you about it because I succeeded. I got across that. And I know that you guys can do that too. So I wanted to cover a little bit of that. I thought that was, really, really kind of an important piece for us to cover today. And so let's talk a little bit about, more about what it might feel like when you're meeting different people. So you're meeting different people and you're encountering different kinds of personalities. Some people are coming at you with, their pearls of wisdom, their Dineys, they're lucky, all these little different things. And when you do that, sometimes people have studied you guys. I just want you guys to know that, there are times that people have been sitting back asking about you, asking about what you're like, what your attributes are, your characteristics, what you enjoy. It's not uncommon that someone is, especially nowadays, researching you before they even meet you. And so what they can do with that, guys, is when they've already done their research, and they're encountering you, they're one step ahead. They know things about you that you may not be aware that they know. And so with all that studying, they're in a position where if they want to do works of the flesh, they could totally focus on deceiving you the entire time. They could do that, and they could do that more easily because they have the upper hand. But I will tell you, that's not the end of the story. There are many, many, many things that you can do biblically that you're allowed to do that's going to help you recover from some of that. And so let's talk about that. The Bible talks a little bit about the idea that, we should be, testing the spirit. We should be testing. It says, do not believe, every spirit, but test the spirit and see whether they are from God. That's what the Bible says. That's straight out of the Bible. So guys, that means even me. If you're enjoying the broadcast and you're liking what you hear, you know what that means? It means if I say, hey, this is in the Bible, it means you should go back, you should be looking, you should be checking that verse out and making sure that it really is in the Bible. Nowadays it's pretty easy. You can just Google something that I say and make sure that it's biblical. You want to be doing that with me. You want to be doing that with loved ones. You want to be doing that. You want to be doing that. You want to be doing that if you're in church, guys. The Bible talks about false prophets, people who purposefully lead you astray or mistakenly, unknowingly lead you astray. These are real things. This is deception. And the discernment is coming from you guys having that opportunity to really test the spirit. And so that's where it's at. So we're going to try to frame a lot of this from a place of, relationships, because that's where I feel like a lot of you guys are getting deceived. But make no mistake about it, the deception happens in all aspects of our lives. It happens in all aspects. And so I wanted you guys to know that. And I also want to just throw out there, if you're in a situation, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's, it could be, different things. If you're in a situation and you're trying to figure out, well, I don't really know the word, I can't really figure out whether, this is good or this is bad, guys, you can get to a place where you're just, observant. You can get to a place where you're observant and really try to sit back and watch things. And I tell you, there's nothing like a little bit of good old observation that's going to, the enemy usually overplays his hand or allows himself to get caught. If you just sit back and observe a little bit, you'll find what you need what information you need. And I tell you, it's one of the main things that I would suggest that you guys be praying into is, if you're in a situation and you're not quite sure if this is good for you, bad for you, not quite sure, I would strongly recommend that you pray into it. I would recommend, if you're already in that situation, that you pray into it and you're asking God in that particular situation. You're asking him to give you discernment. You're asking him for that. You're asking him to give you discernment, so that as you are interacting with different people, that he's releasing to you when something is not good for you or something is going to be troublesome to your atmosphere. Those are the kinds of things that you want to be doing. And so I want to throw that out there. But a lot of us, it's not really real until we're broken or until we're caught up with something. For a lot of us, that's just kind of how it goes. And so, I'll throw this out there. I'll throw this out here because this actually is something that I think is very, very common. And it's online dating. Online dating, guys. It's the most common thing ever. You guys are, you may be out there. You might be writing out your profiles, putting all your information out there. And I'm not going to say there's anything wrong with online dating. It's perfectly fine. Many different people go online date, have a lot of success, find the love of their lives, et cetera, et cetera. So not bashing online dating. I want you guys to have your eyes and ears open in all instances. If you're meeting someone when you're at the mall, if you're meeting someone at the grocery store, I want you guys to have your eyes and ears open at all times and be ready to understand if somebody is walking in the flesh. And if you're, and so I'll give you this, for example. There was a time in my life, I'll give you one of my own personal stories. I'll give you guys one. There was a time in my life that I met someone. And I met someone, and it seemed like they presented themselves as the perfect fit. The perfect fit. So, and this isn't recent, y'all. So this is no one that and they, it was a very short-lived, kind of situation. But before it was years ago, actually. So it was actually before even the pandemic. So this is someone who presented themselves to me as like a perfect fit. Someone who, was saying that, look, I've got it all together. Hey, I have something to offer you. I'm ready for this. And talking a really good game, guys. And that's what sometimes can happen. And I'll be honest, I don't want to make this into one gender doing it. Guys, both genders do this deception thing. Both of them do it because spirit is using people to deceive. Okay? And that is what it is. Men are getting deceived. They're getting deceived. Women are getting deceived. So I'm going to give you this story, but I want you to keep in mind, that could be a male or that could be a female. And it could be a friend. It could be a friend. So when you're talking about this, and this is somebody who's presented themselves, in one particular way. As I began to get to know this person a bit, there are a few things that I feel like were troublesome. Troublesome as I move forward, and I'll describe a few things. I noticed that there was a bit of duplicity there. Duplicity, meaning there was a little bit of something there where I noticed, he's saying one thing here, but I'm observing something different there. And that's something that you want to be mindful of. If there's somebody's got two sides and it's kind of like not a compliment, two sides, but there's something that's going on where it's like, I'm seeing one aspect today and another complete different person tomorrow. That's kind of a red flag situation that you guys want to be really very cautious about. You want to be very, very mindful about something like that. So this is someone who would say, oh, wow, I've got a Christian walk, I'm celibate, I've got a Christian walk, this is where I am. And then I noticed conversations would completely switch. And, I'd be like, okay, he had adult daughters, college age, children. And so then he would speak about his children, and I was like, oh, tell me about, how you're raising your daughters, since you're, such a strong Christian man, and you're a godly man, tell me about this. Tell me, what do you advise them in the department of dating? What kind of, pearls of wisdom do you leave them with? Like, how do you talk to them about relationships and moving forward and all those kinds of good things? And he proceeded to share that he was advising his daughters only in two aspects, advising them on prevention of pregnancy and advising them on preventing disease. And so I thought to myself, well, that's important medical information for one to have. That's important because I'm a nurse, y'all. In case you guys didn't know on TikTok, I'm a nurse. I'm a registered nurse. So from a medical side, it resonates to me that, that one should know about disease and, physical health outcomes. Okay. Good information. But this is, again, guys, this is a Christian man. This is a man who's in Christ, and he's not mentioning the spiritual aspects of sexual immorality. And he also wasn't particularly pushing for his children to behave the way he's speaking that he behaved. And so I thought that was a little off. And so it's one of those things where I thought, I'm going to have to monitor this. And so guys, as you're beginning to interact with people, that's what I'm saying for you to do. It's not coming from a judgy place. And I didn't just, cut him off after I saw that, but I did take the time to watch closely and really be coming from a place of observation to see where else am I going to see duplicity? Where else am I going to see something that, where something is just completely off, and I'm seeing that he may not be the person that he's describing himself to be. So that was one. And then there was another one that came up, and I thought, that's off. It would be, again, this is someone who's describing themselves as a Christian man, a man of God, a believer, and he would at times have, do story time and share stories that I thought, well, that's intimate details I didn't need to know about you at this phase of anything. I don't need to have that information. And I thought, well, this is a Christian man. And so it was for me confusing. But it's you seeing the same thing happen again. It is someone who is beginning to share something and act out behaviors. Planting seeds, by the way, y'all. Acting out behaviors, saying things, planting seeds, planting ideas into your mind, planting these ideas and looking and observing how you respond to it, looking to see if you're going to give, a nonverbal approval, or you're going to give actual verbally approved by, interacting and engaging on that same level. These are the things that will happen, guys. And it's not just, I want to preface this. This is not just something that women experience with men. Men experience from women the same thing. the same thing. So having a conversation where he's using story time to bring up something that I didn't need to know about him intimately or personally, that was not my business, not my information, it's just a complete non-starter. That's what he did. I thought, okay, maybe he needed to get that off his chest. And I kept going. Red flag though, guys, red flag. Kept going. Didn't say anything, just kept going. But guys, you can watch people. That's a common thing. When people are saying one thing, you got to look at what are they doing. Are they sending you a text message that's inappropriate? That's inappropriate. Where did that come from? People have slips. They slip into their flesh and they do it and they show you who they are. The devil overplays his hand every time. And so they may send you a text message. They may send you a photograph and you think, well, why do I need this photograph of you? This is a little bit too edgy for me. They will do that. So guys, this is when they're planting the seeds. They're trying to see how are you going to respond in that situation. They're looking for that response. They're looking to see, where can I blur the lines? Where is there no boundary? Where can I penetrate? That's what they're looking to do. They're looking to figure that out from you. And so I want to caution you guys that when you're seeing these things, these are works of the flesh. That's all that is. And this, I'm going to tell you now, I can tell you now, that was a spirit of lust. That's what that was. And so again, I was new at this. I was still, early on trying to, understand how all of it fits together with the word. And I was still I've got to find myself, a good godly Christian man. And so I was on that. And so that's what I was doing. And so to continue on, guys, I began to see other signs that I thought were a bit off. I began to see things like, his work ethic was off. His work ethic seemed to be off. And I thought, well, everybody goes through hard times and that's okay, But over a period of time, I was like, I wonder, is this like hard times or is this the nature of kind of what I should expect? And so that's a thing, guys. That's a thing because we're talking about biblically, to becoming one and going into the marriage phase, as a man, the Bible talks about the role of a husband. And he is the head of the household, and women are to be submitting to their husband and respecting their husband, whereas the man is supposed to love his wife and be understanding of the wife. But the Bible is very, very specific on providing. It does speak to providing, and it says, if you're, in the head of the household phase, that, if you have a family and members of your household are not being provided for, that is a concern. The Bible actually specifies that is a concern. And so guys, when you are in a situation and, for women out there, I'm seeing a lot of this, for women out there, when you're entering a space where you begin to finance everything. And guys, there's a difference between dating is respectful. It should not be super expensive. It should be. You should be getting to know each other. You should be getting to know each other spiritually and what your interests are, and are you a good fit, and praying about it. That does not cost a lot of money. I want to be very clear about that. It does not cost a lot of money. That's not what this is about. This is about looking at future attributes. If you're going to be raising a family together, if you're going to be handling, home arrangements, financing, taking care of children, then that's all part of living a life together as a family. And so while you're not actually, going to be ever living with this person, because that's not, part of what the Bible the Bible doesn't speak about cohabitation specifically, but you're not going to be living with that person because you wouldn't want to be in a sexually immoral environment. The atmosphere would not be conducive to fleeing sexual immorality. But one of the things about this is when you're talking about, being able to navigate in that relationship space, and you're looking at something and you suddenly as a woman potentially begin taking over all of the financing all the time, that, my friends, biblically should not be happening. That should not be happening, because who is the head of the household? Who's actually the head? And you have to be able to assess that. Guys, you got to be able to assess it without living with that person. You have to be able to assess it some kind of way. And so while that does not mean going on some fancy dinners, that does not mean that, but it does mean if you're observing that when they have a need, they're coming to you for that need, and your job becomes to hand over money. If that becomes that's becoming the relationship where they need something, and woman, as a woman, you're providing. Light bill is off, you're providing. House note is off, you're providing. If you're starting to see a routine of something like that, and of course, everyone, you can see down times and help people out, and all that's good. I'm talking about a trend of a man falling outside of his biblical role. And this goes back and forth for men. If you're seeing a woman who's falling outside of her biblical role, then that's something to be concerned about. It's something to keep your eye out for. And of course, nowadays women work, we're independent, all those good things, that's great. But we want to be careful. We have to, in our dating phase, we have to be assessing for when something is off. We have to be assessing for that. And so I just want to throw that out there. The next thing I want to cover a little bit about, the physical piece, because a lot of times people will they won't just go straight to put their hands on you and cross a boundary. A lot of times, guys, they're testing you out. They're testing you out with a text message. They're testing you out with words. They're testing you out with stories. They're testing you out, and they're trying to figure out, where is your boundary? Where is your stopping point? Are you going to allow for more? They're usually doing that so that they don't get the hard rejection. And women are doing it too. They're testing. So we need to be careful when someone is putting something out there ever so often, putting a thought out there, putting an idea out there, and they keep bringing the conversation back to something that is leading to them basically operating from a place of being in the flesh. These are things we need to be very, very, very cognizant of. We need to be mindful of those things. We need to be aware. And guys, our job is not to fix everyone. We're not going to judge. You can very easily pray for someone, not judge them, and step away and ask God to work on it. Ask God to fix it for them. That's a great place to be when you're dating and you find something that's, okay, there's, we got 5 different red flags here. We need to move on. What you shouldn't do is think that every battle is yours. And I see that often enough. And guys, that brings you into a spiritual atmosphere that can be very, very difficult to manage. Going into these things, you can bring yourself into a place where you're entering a cycle, where it's difficult to break, where you're going to get wounded when you break it. It becomes a problem. So I want to be honest with you guys on that. And so, you want to be, when you have worked on yourself and you realize, okay, I'm, for the most part, it's not 100% of the time, but when you realize, hey, I'm there, I'm walking in the Spirit. I'm there. I'm coming with my peace, my joy, my love, my self-control. I'm coming at it from the right place. Once you get there, guys, you want to be looking for someone who is in the same spirit. You want to be doing that. And you want to be looking to be equally yoked, right? So you don't want to finally have gotten there and you're finally walking in the Spirit yourself, and then you've got this person who's biblically outside of everything that says they're walking in the Spirit, but they're fully functioning and walking in the flesh. As you begin to see those things, guys, we can try a little bit, we can work on it, all those things. But we need to be careful when we're entering the cycle where we're actually just entering their atmosphere. And it's a fine line. I'm not going to say run away from everyone. I'm not saying that, guys. I'm saying if you've got a cycle of every single person that you're with has deceived you. I'm talking about if you've got a cycle which every single person, you feel like, man, I may have had poor discernment. That's who I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the onesie twosies where you're working things out and, you're in a down phase and you're working through it. That's all good. We're not talking about those things, the exceptions. We're talking about when it's a trend, and we're trying to break the cycle of that trend. If you know that this is your battle, and it's not everybody's battle. Some people, they don't battle in this space. But if it's your battle that you keep ending up in a cycle where you have brokenness, wounds, being deceived, being tricked, that is a spiritual battle. I want you to know it's a spiritual battle, and I want you to know that you have authority over every wicked spirit. And I'm telling you guys, the spiritual realm is real, and spirits are working through people. They are working through people to cause you to have a struggle. And so it's one of those things where I just want to tell you, you can get past it. You can do it. You can get past it. But we have to be first very aware, very, very aware. And if you're trying to stay in a good place, the Bible talks about, where you should fellowship, where you should hang out, who you should be around. It talks about the fact that, we should not, what fellowship does light have with darkness? Meaning, we should not be unequally yoked. And that means partnerships, guys, business partnerships. We should not be unequally yoked. If somebody has nefarious behaviors going on with their specific business, guys, you're not supposed to be part of that. You're entering their spiritual atmosphere. I actually came across a story of a woman who was innocently in a business with someone, and that particular individual was working in the flesh completely. This particular individual was, skimming money off the top, stealing money from clients, doing all kinds of nefarious behavior. And this man ended up going to jail for this, right? And here she is, innocently, a business partner of this man. Guys, the Bible says, do not be unequally yoked with an unbeliever. And it talks about not having fellowship. Light does not have fellowship with darkness. Because, guys, that's an easy way of entering their atmosphere and getting wounded. It happens every time, all the time. So I want you guys to be thinking through that. And so we talked about all of that. We want making sure that you guys know if you yourself feel like you have strongholds, that you're operating in the flesh, that you, of course, go into some prayer. If you're able to fast, read your Bible, ask God for discernment. Those are great ways to battle and fight through some of that. And again, you want to be mindful when you are out there and you're looking for someone or dating, or someone's looking for you. Guys, someone could be looking for you. You might be minding your own business, enjoying life as a single person, and somebody's looking for you. We need to be mindful, even if you're looking, as a Christian and looking for a Christian. Guys, we are supposed to test every spirit, every single spirit. We're supposed to test them, because I'm going to tell you, there are people who, go to church and they have an unclean spirit on them. Now, there are people who do that. There are people who go to work and you meet them at work and they have an unclean spirit on them. And guys, when you participate in sinful activities such as sexually immoral behavior, and someone has an unclean spirit, you're going to be entering warfare, potentially, opening yourself up to an ungodly realm, potentially, getting unclean spirits as well. The Bible talks about unclean spirits. And so it specifically says in the Bible, as one example, you can look it up, we should not lay with a prostitute because of unclean spirits, because two are becoming one flesh. And so we should not be doing that. That is a marital covenant act. And so those are the things I want to throw out there as something for you to chew on. I'm not saying that you have to switch it all up today. The Lord is going to work on you. He's going to work on you where you are. If you are in an ungodly relationship and you've got finances tied up, if you've got a mortgage, if you've got a leasing agreement, if there's, children involved, bring your conversation to the Lord. I'm not saying cut it off and run off. I'm saying bring your conversation to the Lord. He's going to give you good strategies. He's going to help you. The Bible talks about the fact that the Lord will give you a way to escape, and that you will not be tempted beyond your ability to handle it, to withstand it. And so you bring your issues, all of your concerns. We should bring those concerns to the Lord and let him give you the strategy to exit. And I'm telling you guys, he will give you the perfect strategy. He will let you know if you need to just move out right now and move in with family. He will let you know if he's going to take you from a step-by-step, thing. He's going to, he may just, work on you for a little while. Let the Lord perfect you. That's what I'm saying. Let him perfect you, because he can do that. He can do that for you guys. And so want to talk a little bit more. This is getting, guys, I'm having such a good time talking with you guys. I want to be mindful, though, for our folks on TikTok. I'm aware that there is a 60-minute limit on TikTok. So just as a, quick heads up, if we shut off on TikTok, that's how it goes. Make sure you come to the YouTube channel and catch the full episode. The episode will be available shortly after we finish airing, so you can always do that. But I want to let you guys know that it's likely that the time will expire and you won't have access to the remaining part of the episode, but you can always subscribe on YouTube, Victory Life Podcast. Go out, subscribe, you'll get reminders. You can also watch from YouTube, and you can watch from YouTube, get the music and all the good stuff. So another way for you to watch, you can obviously watch on TikTok. So, there's just so much that goes into some of this, there's so much of it. And we talked a lot about, assessing the relationships that, that we have and that we're in. We talked a lot about that. But guys, not everyone is going to walk in with the intention to deceive you. I don't want you to become paranoid and think everyone's deceiving you and everyone's trying to deceive you. This is not a conversation about everyone deceiving everyone. This is a conversation about being aware that one of the main attributes of someone who's going to bring you into a place of deception and wound you or harm you is usually someone who also is in their flesh. That's usually one of the attributes. And it's even a place that we have to be mindful of. If we are getting in our flesh, a lot of our trouble actually comes from getting in the flesh. Disagreements and arguments and, strife, a lot of those things happen when we're working in the flesh. So it's important that we're talking about this, not just for other relationships, but we're talking about it for our own self-evaluation. And again, not everybody's out here trying to deceive us. That doesn't always happen. But I find that, sometimes people will just simply invite you in to their nefarious plan. That happens all the time. We talked about that. I want to say it was in episode 1. We talked about walking in our spiritual authority in episode 1. When we talked about the power of prayer, we talked about that. And we talked about being careful what we speak into the atmosphere. And we talked about really being cautious about coming into agreement with things. Because, guys, it's not always that someone's walking around deceiving us. It's very simple for someone to put out an ungodly thought, plan or strategy, and they just say, hey, honestly, this is what I would like for us to do. This is what I would like to happen. Are you in agreement? That happens actually all the time. And so we have to work past that, guys. We have to work past that. And if it's in our heart that we're feeling tempted when something like that is happening, if we're feeling tempted, I'm going to tell you, it's something that you can pray into. You can ask the Lord to work on the desires of your heart. You can ask him to do that so that you're not constantly in a place where you're, having bad discernment, ending up in ungodly situations, getting wounded. Those are the things that bring us into a place of being wounded over and over again. So something that you want to be really, really, really mindful of is that you're not always going to be deceived. Sometimes you're going to be in a place where you have to come into agreement, and that's just, one of those times where you're just struggling with making a good decision. And there are other times that, when we're talking about discernment, that you really want to think about the concept of the fact that, be mindful, guys. There's a gray area there. Someone could be saying, oh, let's be a little private while we're getting to know each other. I think that's fine. But you have to be mindful at some point, something can be a little off. At some point, it goes from a little private to secrecy. And when you go from private to secrecy, something is off. Something is off about that because, what's done in the light, what's done in the dark needs to come to light. So, we need to be careful about someone's intentions when they are putting you in a place of secrecy. Okay, so that's one thing I wanted to mention. I also wanted to just mention that it's very, very often that when we're talking about discernment, that we need to really just think through a little bit about, we talked about, looking for someone and looking for attributes that are in line with the Bible for a mate. And we have to remember what the Bible says about women. What does the Bible say about women? That she should be a helpmate. The woman was actually carved out of Adam, took a rib out of Adam, and they made this woman, right? And so women should be a helpmate. And so that is, she should be adding to the man's life. She should be adding. And a man who's got a strong woman, that's a man who's got favor. So these are the things we need to be thinking about. So when we're using our discernment and we want to attract someone who's got a great spirit and walk in with the fruit of the Spirit, we also, guys, we have to be walking in the fruit of the Spirit too. If you want something that's precious, we have to treat ourselves like we're precious. We have to do that. Thinking about, what can throw someone off about you. If you're changing your mind and, 1 minute you want something, 1 minute you don't, that's double-minded. The Bible says, a double-minded man is unstable in all their ways. And that goes for women as well, obviously. So, we want to be, stable in our mindset. If we feel like we're having those attributes, we want to take it to the Lord. Don't try to sit and just fix everything on your own, guys. That is a more worldly way of thinking about it. We have to surrender. We talked about surrender last week. We have to surrender to the Lord when we're trying to be placed in a place of perfection, where we want the Lord to perfect us. We have to go through that spiritual battle, and then we have to get to a place of surrender. That's something that has to happen. When we're talking about, discernment, a lot of people won't actually, just outright deceive us. A lot of people take us on a journey of, omitting a few words. They'll frame it as miscommunication and things like that. That's something that we need to be mindful of. And guys, we really need to be mindful. We need to be very mindful of empty promises and empty words. That's something that we really need to be looking at very cautiously. When someone is got, great things to say, but more often than not, they're not backing those things up. You can observe that, without even being in a relationship. You can observe that as a friend. You could, as a friend, sit back and observe, is this person a person of their word? Do they cancel? Do they call out of work? Are they people who are not dependable with other friends? Are they not dependable with their family? A lot of this, guys, we don't even have to enter their full atmosphere in order to observe and test their spirit. We can just observe. We can observe from the far and see, what's going on with them. How do they handle things? So something for you guys to think about. Something for you guys to think about. Are they taking pride? Are they taking pride in their work? Are they taking pride with the small things? It's very important for, the Bible talks about when a person is given a little, when they've done a great job with a little, that that much more is available to them. So that's a biblical principle, that doing good with a little is so important. Let me tell you guys a story about discernment of someone, a good story of discernment. I want to leave you guys with something that's, also wet your palate with something that's positive. There was one day, and this is for in America. I know we have people from all across the nation watching in, but I was actually, I'm in America. And so in America, when it's getting close to your birthday and you have a vehicle, then you need to go do certain things with your vehicle, check your emissions and get it registered. And you got to do that every now and then. So I went to go have my vehicle checked for emissions and make sure that it's not producing too much atmospheric, emissions. And as I went to this small little hole-in-the-wall place, it was basically like a garage. As I went to the garage, and the man greeted me, and he was a young man. He probably was, 23 years old. A young man, he greeted me. This man, he began to, ask me really politely, if I could step out of the car, had me, sit down in a place that was very comfortable. I mean, it was a garage, y'all. It wasn't a place that was comfortable, but he treated me like royalty. He literally, opened the door and escorted me to the seat and had me sit over there. It was like a scruffy garage, guys. It was a hot mess, but the way he did what he did. And this is somebody who's going to take a couple of wires, plug it to my car, click a couple of buttons, and give me a printout. That was the job that he had. That was what he was going to be doing for me. But guys, he treated me like royalty. He literally treated me like royalty. And he was so respectful. It was something about this gentleman. He was so respectful, and he was taking such care with each and everything that he did. And he was walking me through, okay, now I'm going to have you step out, and now I'm going to need your keys, and now the way I had never had someone who did my emissions be so detail oriented and so thorough and treat me like royalty, like I was, VIP, entering some premiere. He treated me that way. And I was absolutely floored by it. And I knew that there was something about him, that he was walking in the Spirit, y'all. He was walking with fruit of the Spirit. He was walking in joy, in peace. He was walking in faith that there was more for him. There was more for him. So just so you know, I turned around and I sewed into this young man. I sewed into him. You know why, guys? I sewed into him because I told him, I was like, I need you to know that God sees what you do every day. He sees how hard you work. He sees you, and he's got more for you than you could ever imagine. And doing good with the little, doing good with a little is going to give you so much more. And I don't want to just tell you that. I wanted to sow into him so that he believed. I said, I'm sowing into you right now because I want you to believe that I'm not just saying something. I want you to believe that this message is a message that you can hold on to. And I see it, and I don't even know you. So my God, the Lord who knew you before you even entered the womb, the Lord knows this about you, and he's got everything that you need plus more. And I gave him just a little bit of what I had, and I moved on with my life. But guys, when I tell you, it made me feel so warm and good inside. When I tell you how special, I thought this guy is a special guy. He's got a special plan for his life, and he's precious. He was behaving as though he was completely set aside and set apart. And no matter what job he had, he was going to do it to his very best and be respectful and walk with joy and walk in faith and walk in abundance. Like, I didn't feel like he was making a few dollars an hour. I felt like he was walking in abundance. I felt like he was walking in an aspect where he owned that business, y'all. And so that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. I'm talking about walking with the fruit of the Spirit. Because when you begin to do that, guys, people see it. They enter your atmosphere and they know they need to stand up and rise up to you. And guys, that's what I wanted to cover for today, guys. I thank you guys so much for joining. I tell you, if there is something out here that you guys feel like, wow, I'm struggling with discernment, with, deception, all those things, I just want you guys to know kind of, you can get past it. You can get past it. It's totally something, that you can get past, but I know very well out there that there are so many people who are being deceived. I mean, how many times I heard someone say something like, oh, so-and-so said that they loved me, and then they did 1, 2, and 3. I mean, it happens all the time. And speaking of love, guys, the Bible is very clear on what love is. And let me leave you with that, because, I can't go away without giving you that. The Bible is very clear about love. And what love actually is. If someone is hurting you or trying to hurt you, 1 John 4:18, it says there is no fear in love. There's no fear in love, so no one should be hurting you. That's number one. And it says perfect love casts out fear. Perfect love casts out fear. It also says husbands should love your wives as Christ loved the church. So the marital relationship is a representation of the church. That's what love should look like. It says Ephesians 5:33, each one of you guys should have, a wife, love his wife as he loves himself. And, a man is for every woman. It talks about that. It talks about that. Galatians talks about the fruit of the Spirit. Go back, guys, and read that. Corinthians talks about love is patient and love is kind. We've heard that at every single wedding. Even if you're an unbeliever, you've heard that. I know you've heard it. But if you go ahead and read 1 or 2 more scriptures of Corinthians, this is 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8. If you go and read just a few more scriptures, it's going to say that love is not just patient, kind. It does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. But guys, listen to this. It does not insist on its own way. It does not insist on its own way. It's not irritable. It's not resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing. That's love. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but it rejoices with truth. That is what love should be like, guys. That's what love should be like. So when someone's telling you, I love you, you need to test the Spirit. You need to be in a place of observation. You need to be looking. Are they loving me the way the Bible says I should be loved? That's what you're looking for. If they're trying to be in a marital covenant, are they walking in the aspects of trying to be in a husbandly role? Ready to be head of a household, ready to be a provider, ready to love you as he loves Christ. Is he in the midst of walking with the Lord, being able to hear from the Lord, the way Adam was able to walk with God in the garden and hear from God? Is he in a place where he can hear from the Lord? Because he's leading your family. This is the person leading your family if it's a man. And for the woman, for the man looking for the woman, if she's not walking in the Spirit, but she's walking in the flesh, this is something that could cause a lot of strife. And there aren't a lot of biblical reasons, to get divorced. I mean, there really are not a lot of biblical reasons, guys. Sexual immorality allows you to be divorced. According to the Bible, if you're unequally yoked to an unbeliever and that unbeliever happens to separate from you, It allows you to go in peace. But really, there are not a lot. If you're not, enjoying your husband or wife, biblically, you're not supposed to leave them. That's biblically, And I'll be honest with you, you leave them, you get back out here, you're over here testing the spirits and doing all that stuff, and it's a cycle again. So, it's a real good idea if you're not already married to be walking in the spirit and be like that man was at the emissions testing station. He was walking in the spirit so strong. You just wanted to do something for him. You wanted to show him favor because he was walking in the spirit so strong. In his atmosphere, he pulled you into his atmosphere, and his atmosphere was godly. His atmosphere was godly. It was peaceful. You could tell that he had every aspect of walking in the spirit, guys. So, for you guys, and again, you guys who were, out there, and you're out there and you're struggling and you're trying to figure out, how do I break this cycle? I want to make sure that you know that the cycle can be broken. You can pray your way through it. You can battle your way through it. You can break that cycle. And part of doing that is just really, it's armoring up. And by armor up, I mean fast and pray. It's reading the Bible. It's knowing your word, guys. Know what the Bible tells you. It's the instruction manual. Know what it tells you. Ask God. If you're walking in the flesh, ask God to change the desires of your heart. Ask God to work on you. You want to do that even before you are dating. You want to be doing that when you're single. So it's a good time to do that and reassess. If you meet someone, if it's someone that you're meeting from a business aspect, from a relationship aspect, from any of those things, you want to be making sure that you test the spirit. You want to be making sure you're testing the spirit, and you want to make sure that you're walking in the spirit. So even if they're not, that you're not reacting in a fleshly reaction. You guys, you want to make sure that you yourself, that you're walking with God. That's what you really want to do. And you want to go to God from a place of, God, surrender. You got to go to a place of surrender and say, God, I can't do it. If I could have done it already, I would have done it for myself. You want to go to God and say, hey, God, I'm surrendering to you. I need your help. Guys, you meet these people and it's all off and it's too many red flags and it's a big, long list of everything off. The battle is not always yours, guys. If you're going to be making big decisions about moving to a different city, going to a new job, having a relationship, getting married, trying to get divorced, if you're trying to do those things, guys, you need to be in counsel from the Lord. You need to be led from the Lord on every decision that you're making. Because I tell you, some of us who are not in covenant, these battles are not yours. But if you are in covenant, there are very few reasons for you to leave a covenant. Biblically, that you should be leaving a covenant. There's very few reasons. And so, guys, once you enter that covenant, even if you're married to an unbeliever, if they have not walked away, you need to stay through. Pray for them. You might be the person who saves their soul. You might be the person who prays and gets them to an eternity just because you prayed for them and the Lord, hit them with the Holy Spirit, You just don't know. So that's the reason why those instructions are written that way. It's not to control you. It's to help you from getting wounded, to keep you from getting wounded, to keep you from responding in the flesh, entering sin, and getting bound. That's the kind of thing that we're trying to do. And guys, I'm telling you, the Bible was really, really clear. You don't need to be in a position of, experiencing every little aspect of a person, intimately and all those things. You don't need to experience every aspect of a person to get to know them. You can test their spirit and observe them even from a friendship place. So guys, be very, very cautious. If someone is saying that they're 100%, full of the Holy Spirit and godly and all that, but they're constantly pulling you to a place where they're trying to get you sexually immoral, trying to pull you to a place of sin, trying to pull you in a place of secrecy, trying to pull you into a place where your heart tells you it's not right. When that's happening, trust and believe that if you look at the definition for walking in the flesh, they're probably walking in the flesh and they're probably going to pull you away from God. And guys, when they pull you away from God and you can't hear the Lord, it's going to be a harder battle to get out of that particular battlefield. You want to be able to hear from the Lord at all times. And so that's all I have for today, guys. I thank you so much. I hope that this has blessed you. I'm hoping that that the audio comes out okay for this particular broadcast. This is brand new, first time on TikTok. And so I thank you guys for joining. We're always live on YouTube every Thursday, 7 p.m. Central Time, Victory Life Podcast. And I hope to see you next time. Thanks, guys. Be sure to like and share the broadcast. Don't forget, subscribe. YouTube, Victory Life Podcast. Thursdays, 7 p.m. Central Time. Thank you.